Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Almost Famous, starring Billy Crudup, Patrick Fugit, Kate Hudson, Frances McDormand, Jason Lee, Anna Paquin, Firuza Balk, forgive me if I said that wrong, Noah Taylor, and Zoe Deschanel, directed by Cameron Crowe. Now, I didn't see this in theaters back in the day, but I did see it eventually when it came out on DVD all those many years ago. But let's. And I remember really enjoying this movie very much. But will it be as good as I remember? Let's get into it and find out. We start the movie in 1969 when this starts. While this movie takes place in San Diego, California, as we meet teacher Elaine Miller, played by Frances McDormand, and a young William walking around the place. And when they get back home, they cook, and Elaine's daughter, William's sister, Anita, played by Zoe Deschanel, comes home, and Elaine tells Anita she can't date nor kiss any boys, and as Anita says, "Fack you," or "fuck you" instead, while kids make fun of him for not having pubes, and Anita tells Elaine he skipped an extra grade as he's skipping kindergarten first grade as he learns he's 11 years old instead of 12. And Frances McDormand gives a tremendous performance in her career, along with her future roles in movies like Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, and Nomadland. And Zoe Deschanel is great here as this was before she was ever the quirky girl in other movies. Anita leaves. That's when I get to 500 Days of Summer when she becomes that. Anita leaves the home to live with her boyfriend Daryl as William hears rock and roll music for the first time ever as he grows up in high school as a high school student in 1973 and played by Patrick Fugit as he wants to be a writer in a magazine called the Rolling Stone magazine led by a rock critic named Lester Bangs, played by Philip Seymour Hoffman, may he rest in peace, is on the radio and plays rock and roll records as William sends Lester his articles and tells him to keep sending him his articles as they talk for a while. And the cinematography is tremendous from start to finish as it was smart editing choices. Like sometimes they will go 1, 2, 3, and 3 seconds later we move on to another shot and it goes on like that. And director Cameron Crowe does a great job at shooting this movie as well as telling the story, and as it is, and is it as good as Jerry Maguire? Probably, yes it is. Maybe better, in my opinion. Elaine drops William off at an assignment to interview the next Black Sabbath called Stillwater and embarrasses himself as he goes to the concert and gets rejected twice and he meets Penny Lane, played by, at the time, Goldie Hawn's daughter, Kate Hudson, although she's still alive. What the hell am I talking about? Estella Starr, played by Bijou Phillips, and Polexia, let me see if I'm saying this name right, Aphrodisa, played by Anna Paquin, as well as Black Sabbath, or Stillwater, Russell Hammond, played by Billy Crudup, Jeff Beebe, played by Jason Lee, and others to interview them, and says a speech and force them in after the security guard doesn't accept them. But William gets accepted as their writer as he interviews them and sees Penny giving William a new look as well as a pass, and he asks her for her real name, and she will never tell him. And Kate Hudson delivers a tremendous performance as the actors in this are beyond fantastic in their roles, in my opinion. The band performs their music and they ask William to come to Los Angeles, California, as well as other places, and bring Penny with them, as she met the band through William and she gives him her number to eventually hook up with each other, as well as the band. And next morning comes and Daryl comes to the house while William writes the article about the band, and he lies about going to California with the band as he's joined by Penny, and the editing works great, like I said before. And keep in mind, I'm reviewing this under the bootleg cut. If you know there's such a thing, there you go. William and Penny hear Polexia crying while William sees a comedian, and the asshole comedian telling William to blow him. And when they get to Stillwater, Polexia tells William the acts of the life is Penny, as she was in acting classes until she asks William for pot, and he doesn't smoke that shit, while Polexia is flirting with William and acting fucking weird until Jeff comes in and wants to talk with William some more. And we move on to Penny being approached by Russell, and she brings up how she's retired from being with them, but they kiss, and we move on to William getting a phone call with Lester's office, and the production design and set decoration was well done. We get on the road with William and Penny to Arizona by the bus, and William asks to interview Stillwater one-on-one, as it'll take time throughout the movie, and when they get there, he gets a message from Elaine from far away and freaks the hotel clerk out, and they get to their rooms, and Russell says to go away, as Penny comes by, says to come by later, and they get to the radio interview with Stillwater, and the radio man, Quincy, I think his name was Quincy Jones, but whatever, looked like he was high on weed, as Jeff answers his dumbass questions, and Quincy starts to fall asleep, not paying attention to the fact they fucked during one of their songs while he's asleep, and he makes fun of him, and they make fun of him while Elaine calls his hotel room, and a woman answers by the phone, and Elaine tells her a message for William saying she knows what's going on, which is an iconic line I remember from the trailers as well as advertisements, and the line being delivered by Frances McDormand is perfectly said, and the writing in this is absolutely very well done. Russell tells William his secrets while off the record and says he trusts him while he is the enemy, and next day comes and William interviews a band member who comes up with the stupid answers, and they perform a concert as Russell gets zapped and knocked the fuck out, and everybody gets on the bus while the manager gets in a fight with the promoter, who comes off like a fucking asshole while going after the bus by running over the gate, while William gets a message from the woman saying her mother called and she gives him the message, and she says she'll see him in the next town, which is Tapioca. I forget how you say that word, or name anyways. And at one point they run into some school running girls, and Penny flips them off while she chats with William, and the chemistry between Kate Hudson and Patrick Fugit is brilliant. William asks Elaine and chats about what she wanted as part of their agreement, which is to call him every single night. And we move on to William interviewing Russell as Stillwater gets their t-shirts, which doesn't look good on their part. And Russell and Jeff get into an argument about how Jeff is upset with Dick managing the band because he's Russell's best friend, which he believes Russell is a joke, as Jeff is the best singer and Russell is the guitarist, as William and Russell walk together looking for something that's real, and they get an invite from some teenagers to a party at his friend Aaron's house, and spelled Aaron, and party with teenagers and drink with them, which doesn't feel like a good idea, as it ends up with Russell wanting to jump in the pool. Well, William says don't do it, but he's drunk on acid, but he jumps into the pool with the last words, he's on drugs and he digs music. And despite this is the bootleg cut I'm reviewing for the show, and which is somewhat the better version, but at the same time not really, depending on your mood, I'll say. But don't get me wrong, I really like the movie at this point. They drive over to another town called Greenville, Tennessee, who is listening to Elton John. Meanwhile, Elaine can't focus on her class as Rockstar's kidnapped her son, and he gets to Greenville, and Lester tells him Rolling Stone keeps calling him while he has nothing and tries to write the article. And Penny uses the restroom, and William gets to know her first things first before he ever sees her private parts, which is a little awkward. And then the other girl kidnaps William to play with him while Penny watches him, and these are very great shots by director Cameron Crowe, as he does a great job at making this movie look brilliant. William gets a call the next day from the Rolling Stone magazine and tries to get an interview from Russell, but while he's asleep, he can't have shit, and he feels depressed on Russell waking him up and says he'll do the interview in Cleveland, as he and Penny talk him into going to Cleveland, and he seems rather tense about it. And they get to Cleveland and stay at the Celebrity Hotel as everyone is having a great time. William thinks, what the fuck am I doing with my life? And William calls Elaine to check up on Russell and gets on the phone with her, and she tells him he's a 15-year-old As before, William was bullshitting about her age earlier in the film, at, before going on stage, and I'm like, oh shit, this motherfucker is fucked because of Elaine confessing his age, and the music is they perform in this movie is great to listen to from start to finish. Stillwater might get a new manager named Dennis, as he talks with them and explains some very good points. For example, Russell could have sued, they could have had more money, and he's the guy who can get them more money, or else they're going to their record, and he decides to represent them or not as Stillwaters, and agree to take Dennis in as their manager. And am I the only one that thinks this motherfucker is a douchebag? Because he acts like it, as he says he can give them an airplane and to ditch the bus. As they ditch the bus and go on the airplane and get to Boston, Massachusetts, and they play a game of poker to get Penny to sleep with one of them and celebrate Penny's birthday with the cake, as I don't remember this from the theatrical cut, as this must be the scene from in the bootleg cut. And I'm really enjoying the movie and what it is for what it is, as it's a great piece of art from director Cameron Crowe. William and Penny have a tiny argument while she wants to move to New York, as she fantasizes Russell. While she says to him he's too sweet for rock and roll, as he comes off like an ass. And we get to a plane ride into New York, and they get to the city, which I've been to a couple of times, and it's been a little over 20 years. As we meet Russell's wife, as Vic happens to be there, and he confesses Penny's real name is Emily or something. Frick, it's been a couple of weeks. I don't remember too much about what her real name is. As William gets a phone call from Rolling Stone, but I'm going to just say this. I'm not sticking with Emily. William gets a phone call from Rolling Stone to come to San Francisco by the next day, and how the fuck is that going to be possible? And we see Polexia is going to England and saying her goodbyes to William, and while in a restaurant, Williams tells the band they're going to on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine, and Penny stares and freaks Russell's wife out, and she seems upset as she suddenly leaves, and I feel so bad for Penny, as she'll never see herself with Russell, and I feel her pain, as that's how memorable Kate Hudson's character is. William gets to the hotel room of Penny, and she's drugged out of her fucking mind, and she falls down and can't get back up, while William is missing his own high school graduation while he's helping Penny get out by getting a doctor to her attention. And William says he loves Penny, and he kisses her because she's not going to remember it. And the doctors show up to help her out while drugged up, and she suffocates going through the doctor's orders. And we suddenly move on to William and Penny walking around Central Park, as she confesses her name is Lady Goodman. And again, I ain't sticking with that, as he brings her back to the airport on the way home. And one piece of criticism I do have is how did she heal her after a couple of minutes? I thought it doesn't fucking matter, as she gets on the plane back home, and there are some magical moments in like this clip when Williams follows Penny's plane to say goodbye to her, which is the best scene in the whole movie. Stillwater are on the plane back to California as the storm comes and shakes the plane, as Russell says he loves his bandmates like family, as Jeff says nobody loved Russell and fucked his wife Leslie. That's her name after all this fucking time, huh? While William confesses he loves Penny, and the band threw her away like she was garbage. And everybody says their confessions, and luckily the plane doesn't crash as they land on the ground, and Russell tells William to write what he wants, as William gets to the Rolling Stone office in San Francisco to a meeting with David Felton, played by Rand Wilson, before he was well known for the Steve Carell TV show The Office, as he doesn't have much and gets on the phone with Lester, tells him to tell the truth about Stillwater as a band while he becomes friends with them. And I like how we get to know these guys as bandmates. And William is the most relatable character in this whole movie. Jeff gets off the plane from the Rolling Stones, or the phone, from the Rolling Stone magazine, as they fact check, and they realize William made them look like dicks, and Russell tells them 90% of what William says was fiction, as William waits in the airport for his flight home, and he's encountered by Anita, which he feels down, while he feels down, and he takes her home back to Elaine, and she's very upset with him at the same time because he brought her back. He brought back Anita into her life and have a good time with each other's company as William is exhausted and miserable at the same time as Russell and Jeff confess how much they need to work not they need to work on not hating each other. And Russell learns Penny has an overdose and wonders if she's okay and asks about William, as well as Leslie and Russell calling Penny on the phone and says he wants to see her face as he wants to see her and she wants to make him meet. She's what made him better as a singer, and she gives her William's address with her, and he comes to William's house to confront him, and he apologizes to him while he's depressed, and Russell tells William Penny cares about him, and he confesses he talked to Rolling Stones magazine and told him everything he wrote was the truth, while he lied about it when he first heard about it. And William interviews him one more time while Penny is on the way to Morocco, and the climax made this into this director's masterpiece. But this is a masterpiece. But is this a masterpiece? Let's talk about it in a rating, shall we? I'll give this movie a 9.0 out of 10. Frances McDormand, Kate Hudson, Patrick Fugit, and everybody in this whole cast is beyond fantastic in their roles and give tremendous performances throughout. And the cinematography is tremendous, as sometimes it'll show one shot for 3 seconds and we move on to the next shot, as the editing works great. And Cameron Crowe does a great job with shooting this movie as well as telling the story, as this is, is this as good as Jerry Maguire, which I reviewed before? Yes, maybe better than that, in my opinion, as the production design is set decoration is well done. The writing in this is also absolutely well done, as the chemistry between Kate Hudson and Patrick Fugit was brilliant while I watched the theatrical cut, but I took notes on the bootleg cut. And depending on your mood, it's somewhat a better version, but at the same time not really, as I can't tell you if it is a better cut or not, as it's just a really good movie for 2 hours and 40 minutes of the bootleg cut, of the 2-hour cut, or the 2-hour cut of the theatrical cut. But don't get me wrong, I really do like the movie very much, as this movie director Cameron Crowe's best film in my opinion. The shots are great to look at by director Cameron Crowe, as it's his best film yet, and he does a great job at making this movie look brilliant. And this is a strong recommendation for this movie, as the music in this movie is great to listen to from start to finish. As I really like the movie for what it is, as it's a piece of art from director Cameron Crowe. This is his masterpiece. Now, don't get me wrong, Jerry Maguire is a great film too, and if you saw that review, you'll know why. But this is his masterpiece at the end of the day. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me for this review, and until then, I'm almost famous, but not really.